Yes, 2-5 is here. Sports Reports is ordered. Like, review, subscribe. Do all the free things. Do all the good things. Everywhere that you get your podcast. So, this week, I've been going down the top 25, trying to figure out my thoughts going into the season. So, tonight, I'm going to finish it off with teams 21 through 25. And then we're going to make some conference championship game predictions. Then, of course, on Monday, Sports Reports is ordered. Myself and Mr. Logical, 9:30 Eastern, we're going to give you our actual playoff prediction. So here we go. Taking it from the top, or from the bottom, I should say. Number 25, Iowa. What to say about Iowa? Offense has been the name of the game the last couple of years. And by offense, I mean that their offense is offensive. So Brian Ferentz is gone. Tim Lester is in, former head coach at Western Michigan. Truthfully speaking, literally speaking, all Iowa has to do is be mediocre on offense. And they could find themselves in the Big Ten championship game. Kirk Ferentz, the dad in this situation, the LeBron in this situation, giving Bronny the job. But in this situation, Kirk is 5-1 against Iowa State, while they're being coached by Matt Campbell. Matt Campbell, in my opinion, is one of the best coaches in the country. They do get Ohio State. They avoid Penn State and Michigan. So, if I'm Iowa looking at their schedule, I say to myself, who can we not beat besides Ohio State? That's what I'm thinking about, as I look at Iowa's schedule. Iowa State's going to be a tough game on September 7th. It always is, but they usually win. They go to Minnesota this year, but of course, they got revenge on their mind with the whole Cooper DeJean. Was it a fair catch? Was it not a fair catch? They get Washington, who lost everything. They get Michigan State, even though they go there. Northwestern, at UCLA, at Maryland. So their toughest game beside Ohio State could be Nebraska. So if you're Iowa, why not us? That's the motto. Then you got number 24, NC State, the Wolfpack, sleeper pick for the ACC championship game. No Miami, no Virginia Tech, no Florida State in the regular season, no Louisville. But they do get Grayson McCall from Coastal Carolina to take over at quarterback. Coach Dave Doran has built a culture in Raleigh where NC State is just a formidable opponent you're going to know that you played NC State when you're done. They also bring back Kevin Concepcion, the ACC Offensive Freshman of the Year. He is the only player in the nation with 250 rushing yards, 750 receiving yards. So I'm all in on the Wolfpack. I want to see how far they can go. They've beat Clemson 2 out of the last 3 years, even though both of those were in Raleigh. This year, they go to Death Valley. So keep your eye on that. I think that NC State is going to be one of the surprise teams of the season. Week 2, we're going to find out what they're made of because Nico, and he brings his volunteers into Charlotte at a neutral site. USC, it's the Miller Moss era. Caleb Williams out, Miller Moss in, 6 touchdowns in the bowl game against Louisville. They got Woody Marks coming in at running back from Mississippi State, but we know that they can play offense. We know that Lincoln Riley can be the quarterback whisperer. The question we have is, can USC stop anything? I don't think that USC could close a door. Their defense has been so bad the last couple of years. But they do have Bear Alexander. They still have Akili Arnold. So he's not starting Deanton Lynn. He's not starting from a place of a bare cupboard. He's coming over from UCLA, so that's always great when you can take the defensive coordinator from your rival. He took a number 85 ranked defense and had him in the top 15. USC is a wild card because they could probably beat anybody but lose to anybody. But the problem is when you're trying to project it out, I don't know why they're ranked because, one, they're losing Caleb Williams and we don't know what they're going to look like. That's number one. Number 2 is if you want to look at your top 25 as a projection, you can't sit up here and think that they're going to finish anything better than 7-5, So looking at their schedule, for example, right? They get LSU next week, next Sunday, starting out in Sin City, right? They go to Michigan in 2 weeks, or 2 weeks after that. They play Wisconsin the week after, go to Minnesota. Then on October 12th, they get Penn State in LA. Go to Maryland, host Rutgers, at Washington, Nebraska, UCLA, Notre Dame. So just looking at this off top, right? You got LSU going to be a tough game. Going to the big house is going to be tough. I know everybody thinks, JJ McCarthy's gone, Blake Corum's gone. Michigan's still going to be fine. Penn State coming in. You got Nebraska, so Dylan Raiola. So those are going to be the two teams in the Big Ten, Nebraska and USC, that are going to fight for who can be the shocker, who can be the surprise team, who can make a bowl game, who can spoil somebody's season. The Kansas Jayhawks, a few weeks ago, I was tempted. I did my Who's Going to Be This Year TCU video, and I was tempted to say that the Kansas Jayhawks are going to go to the Big 12 title game, play against Utah. But now that I look at it, they do bring Devin Neal back, one of the nation's leading rushers and best running backs. Lance Leipold is one of the best coaches in the country, if not the pound-for-pound best coach in the country when you look at what he's done at Kansas the last few years. So they are a team that's going to challenge for the Big 12. The problem is you want to celebrate because Jalen Daniels is back, but how long is he going to be back? He gives them a different dynamic and adds a certain punch to their offense. If he does go down this year, there's no Jason Bean coming in the game. They lose a few pieces on defense. They're not even playing at home this year. They got their early games, 2 games at the soccer stadium, and then they go play the rest of their games at Arrowhead Stadium. So I don't even know how much of a factor home field is going to be for them this year. Not that they have the greatest home field to begin with. And then finally, the Arizona Wildcats. Whereas if Jedd Fisch was there this year at head coach again, I would probably have Arizona in my top 10. I would probably have Arizona as a playoff team. They have, for my money, the best wide receiver in the league, or I should say in the nation, and Tetairoa McMillan. Noah Fafita's back with another, he's got experience now. He came in last year for Jaden Delora, who got injured. Took Arizona to 10 wins. I saw him live down here, smack Oklahoma around in the Alamo Bowl. So Arizona is going to be a formidable opponent. They're bringing in Brett Brennan as head coach. He's 34-48 at San Jose State, even though that does include a Mountain West championship. So the Big 12, I've been talking about it all off season. They're just going to eat each other. The champion might have 2 losses. So I don't know if they're going to get more than one playoff team. If they do, Arizona could be a part of that equation. Now, if it were up to me, teams that I would not have in the top 25 and who I would replace them with, I would take Kansas out and put Virginia Tech in, because I just feel that with the return in production that Virginia Tech has, Reuben Drones, he's a leader. They got a decent schedule. They play Rutgers. They go to Miami. They get Clemson at home. But they have no reason to not be, say, 9-3 and potentially 10-2. Whereas Kansas's ceiling is probably 9-3, and their low end is as low as 5-7, depending on how Jalen Daniels stays healthy. Give me SMU over Texas A&M. A&M's breaking in a new head coach. They lost Evan Stewart. They lost Anaya Smith. They lost Walter Nolan on defense. SMU is coming into the ACC with a top 15 national defense from last year. They're bringing their quarterback, Preston Stone, back. So watch out for SMU. I don't think they're going to win the ACC. They're going to be fine, even though I do have an issue because it's hard for these G5 conference teams to come into these leagues from the offensive line and defensive line standpoint. So maybe I'll eat my words on SMU, but at this point, I would take them over Texas A&M. And finally, I would take Boise over USC in my top 25 because USC is back to the drawing board. No Caleb Williams, like I mentioned. Defense is always going to be an issue for them as long as Lincoln Riley's the head coach, unless D'Anton Lynn can make the impact this year. But I think Boise State is going to win the Mountain West. So with that being said, let's go ahead and transition to my conference championship picks. We're going to take it from the top. SEC, I'm going Georgia over Ole Miss. I think Ole Miss this year has the schedule to get through. Now, does that mean that Ole Miss is a great team? Probably not. But I see the schedule opening up for them. They got wide receivers galore for Jackson Dart to take his pick on who he wants to throw the ball to. Ulysses Bentley is in the backfield. He is experienced, and Lane Kiffin's got to get over the hump. Georgia is Georgia. I shouldn't have to say too much about them. Offensive line going to wear you down. Defense going to smack you up. They do have a tougher schedule. They go to Bama and Texas, but as long as they get a split there, you're in good shape. ACC, I'm not a homer, but give me Florida State over Clemson. I was tempted to pick NC State, but NC State has to go to Clemson. So NC State, I think, is going to be right in the middle of this ACC race. I know everybody's happy about Miami. They think that this is the year that Miami's finally going to put it together. I can't trust Miami as long as Mario Cristobal is the coach until I see it done. They do have Cam Ward, who potentially is going to be a Heisman candidate. They have Damian Martinez from Oregon State, but when I look at it, Mike Norvell has proven again and again that he is the quarterback maker. DJ Uyangale is going to be, we'll see. We're going to find out tomorrow. We're going to see him against Georgia Tech. He's going to be the key to the season, right? And that's nothing crazy, a quarterback being the key to the season. But this is different because DJ has to show that he can throw the football. He can run the ball, and Florida State's going to be able to run the ball. Florida State's breaking in some new receivers, but I just think the talent, I think the defense might be even better this year, even though they lost Jarrett Verse and Braden Fisk. They have Patrick Payton. They have Marvin Jones Jr. coming in from Georgia, son of legend Marvin Jones. You look at the secondary, they got Cypress back there. They lost Renardo Green, but I think there's enough speed and talent that Florida State will be all right. Big Ten. This is one that shocked me because initially I was looking at Ohio State, Oregon, just like everybody else. I still think that Ohio State's going to get clipped when they go to Autzen this year, but I think that's going to be their only loss. They're going to end up on one side of the Big Ten championship game. Ohio State has no excuse. They should win the national title this year. Operative word, should. But on the other side of the bracket, I got Penn State. I think the Nittany Lions are going to have the best defense in the country. Michigan lost a lot on defense, but they'll be fine. But I think Penn State is going to be slightly better due to what Michigan lost. Now, all they need is Drew Aller to be Drew Aller. We heard all the talk about how he was going to be the savior of the program. Sean Clifford was the problem. 6.8 yards per attempt last year. You got to do better than that. They bringing in Kansas offensive coordinator Colt Nickey. So I expect them to open it up. Nick Singleton should have some better holes to run through. Katron Allen to follow through. So we're going to see. I got faith in the Nittany Lions for once. James Franklin can't beat Ohio State or Michigan. He only plays Ohio State this year. So give me Penn State on the other side, and I'm picking Ohio State as the Big Ten champion. In the Big 12, the conference that's going to eat itself, right? Give me the Utes. I'm taking the Utes. Cam Rising is back. They're going to be tough as nails, as always. They have a championship DNA, championship pedigree. I normally don't like to pick teams to win conferences in their first year, but when I look across the Big 12, I see a team like Oklahoma State, Alan Bowman, 15 touchdowns, 14 interceptions. Why is that bad? Because he's about to be a seventh-year quarterback. You should be done with that by now. Besides the fact that you have a 1,700-yard rusher in the backfield, you have no reason to have such a crappy touchdown to interception ratio. No excuse. It's unacceptable. So I'm not picking Oklahoma State to play Utah in the Big 12 title game. I thought about Kansas State. I like Avery Johnson a lot. I like Chris Kleiman a lot, but they lost their offensive coordinator to Texas A&M. So I'm going to go out on a limb here. Give me the Iowa State Cyclones, Utah versus Iowa State. And it's funny because Iowa State is basically Utah-like to begin with. So we'll see how the TV networks feel about that if that comes to fruition. So that's your power four. Let's get to the G5 real quick. I'm gonna start with the American because I know everybody has been talking about the Mountain West is the best of the G5s. I still think it's the American. I think the American's a little bit deeper. Give me Memphis over UTSA. I do think USF could have something to say about it, and keep your eye on Florida Atlantic, year two of Tom Herman. So I think they could be a surprise team to challenge for the league championship. But I think Memphis just has too much. In fact, I have Memphis in the playoff. Oops, spoiler alert, but their only loss should be to Florida State. And don't be surprised if that game is a lot closer than it has any business being. Mountain West Conference, give me Boise over UNLV. I wanted to pick Fresno State, but Coach Tedford had to step down, so I don't like it. Barry Odom in year two, look at what he did with UNLV last year. They're back. Boise's back. Give me that matchup. Give me Boise State. Boise State is a playoff contender. They do play Oregon this year. Outside of that, can anybody get them? The Sun Belt. Sun Belt might actually be the best G5 conference. Don't cry for James Madison. I know Curt Cignetti is up in Bloomington right now, but James Madison still has talent. They still have a winning culture. They got Bob Chesney coming in from Holy Cross. So that offense is going to be humming. They'll be all right. But I'm going to go with Appalachian State, and hopefully Appalachian State can do us a solid and beat Liberty. We'll get to Liberty in a second. Appalachian State gets Liberty. If Appalachian State wins that game, Liberty's not in the playoff. But we'll get back to that. So then you look at it. Troy is going to take a step back because John Summerall is in Tulane now. So last year I was all about South Alabama. Not this year. Give me, and I'm not being local, give me Texas State. San Marcos, stand up. So give me Appalachian State over Texas State. Conference USA. We talked about Liberty for a quick second. Liberty, this is the second year in a row with no Power 5 opponent. And I know Power 5s probably don't want to schedule you. I get it, but it just is what it is. Play Vandy. Play somebody that has a big logo on their jersey and on their field. So, Western Kentucky, my school, is going to be the biggest challenger to Liberty, but I don't think they got it. I think Liberty is going to run away with the conference again, and it's going to be up to Appalachian State in the non-conference to take care of Liberty. As I said, a one-loss Liberty is not getting into the playoff with no Power 5 on their schedule. I would even venture to say an undefeated Liberty should not get into the playoff, even though I love Coach Jamie Chadwell, who came in from Coastal Carolina last year. But that's just me. And then finally, the Mid-American Conference, boring. Yes, I'm picking Miami over Toledo. Ohio lost a lot where, Curtis Rourke, he's over in Bloomington with Curt Cignetti. Bowling Green could make some noise this year. They could be the surprise team in the conference, but give me Miami of Ohio over Toledo. So, like I said, playoff predictions coming Monday. Mr. Logical and myself, Sports Reports Azor. That's going to be college playoff prediction. That's going to be NFL playoff prediction. So stick with us, and I'll be back with a Florida State Georgia Tech preview.